Chris Godinez, licensed professional counselor, also the host of We Need to Talk on every Sunday at noon. This video, Mountain Standard Time, Arizona, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. This video is for educational and informational purposes only. The views and opinions stated herein are mine and mine alone. They do not represent the ACA, the APA, or any other therapist for that matter. I would like to thank my sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/Chris Godinez. I will put the information down in the description. They are an online therapy company. They will help you find a therapist here in the U.S. If you are outside of the U.S., they are international. So like if you're in the U.K. or France or Italy or Asia or Indonesia or really anywhere that you can get onto an internet and get to betterhelp.com/Chris Godinez. Fill out a few questions. They'll set you up with a therapist here in the States. Therapists are all licensed. They are all master's level or PhD level. So there it is, betterhelp.com/Chris Godinez. Also, if you're in the US, you don't like your therapist, you want to try online therapy, betterhelp.com/Chris Godinez. So there it is. And they're really affordable. That's the thing I really like about them, is that I've been getting good feedback. People seem to like them. And they like their therapists, and it's affordable. It's like $65 for a package of 4. So that's pretty good. And if you don't like your therapist, you just go online, fill out some questions, and they'll put you with somebody else. So there it is. All right, let's dive into the questions. My father is a sociopath. I guess that's why my mother-in-law is a narc. Okay, I'm not quite sure what the question is, but let's talk about why we are attracted to who we are attracted to. So what we tend to do is we tend to be attracted to, especially if we are in those levels of consciousness. So the 4 levels of consciousness, unconscious incompetence. You know, we're just walking into walls. We don't even know the walls are there. We don't even know why we're hitting the walls, what's going on. Unconscious incompetence. Then when we start recognizing there's a problem, then we come up to conscious incompetence. And that's really a painful kind of stage, because it's like, ew, I don't like what's happening. I don't like what I see. I don't like what's going on. And then we go up into conscious competence when we start working on it. It's like, okay, I don't want to hit walls anymore. I want to really avoid these walls. I want to avoid all these problems. Great. I'm going to work on myself. Okay. And eventually you come up into unconscious competence, meaning you don't even have to work at it. It just kind of flows. You know what I'm saying? It's like you avoid the walls without having to be like really super conscious of the walls. It's like you see the walls, you sidestep them, don't even think about it. So what we tend to do is we tend to gravitate to somebody who reminds us, especially if we're in the unconscious incompetence phase, reminds us of the family of origin who we had the most difficult time with. So for example, if our issue was with our mother, we'll find somebody who reminds us subconsciously of our mother. Or if it was with our father, we'll find somebody subconsciously who reminds us of our father, because our little kid is the one that's doing the picking. Our inner child is the one that is trying to figure out, well, how do I work this, and how do I fix this, and how do I make this better, and all of sort of this stuff. The problem of it is when the inner child is the one that's running the show and doing the picking, you've got half of a doo-doo sandwich, when you pick somebody that reminds you of your abuser. Total doo-doo sandwich. So yes, we tend to gravitate towards people who remind us of the parent that we had the most difficulty with. So that's why working on ourselves is so important. And it drives me crazy because I have people that are like, oh, I don't like it. It's too painful. I don't want to have to remember. Here's the deal, guys. Those memories are going to be sitting back there nagging at you whether you deal with them or not. And the worst part of it is they're going to start coming out sideways, in that inner child will be picking your partner. Inner child will be deciding where you work and who you work for. Inner child will be the one running the show. You don't want a 6-year-old doing that kind of work. You don't, because they're going to inevitably pick somebody who reminds them of the abuser so they can fix it. That's what it really is about. So basically, when we are unconscious, yes, we tend to gravitate romantically towards somebody who reminds us of the original wound. So that's why it's so important to do your own work. Work on you. Get that stuff nailed down tight so that when you are out deciding to date or whatever, Adult you is the one that's doing the picking, not 6-year-old you. So I hope that answered the question. If it didn't, feel free to IM me on Facebook and just say, hey, Chris, that wasn't quite what I was going for. Could you answer this? I'm happy to do that. So, all right. How can I overcome what my partner did because of his mother? Well, okay, so therapy for everybody. So basically, if you are still with the partner and they did things at the behest of a narcissistic in-law or their narcissistic parent, you guys are going to need couples counseling for sure. You're going to have to work through all of the anger, the resentment, the hurt, the betrayal, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you're going to have to come up with a game plan for you to feel safe, because once that has been broken, once the spouse or the partner has sided with the abuser and has done harm, it takes time to rebuild that trust. And that trust is like, how do I explain this? Trust is like in Japan, when something breaks, when pottery breaks, they repair it with gold. So you can always see where the crack was. It is now whole. It will hold water, but you can always see where the crack was. That's kind of like trust. You can repair the trust, but there's always going to be that kind of, okay, don't break the trust again, because if this gets broken again, we're done, because this bowl ain't going to hold water. You know what I'm saying? So it's hard to rebuild the trust, but not impossible. So you're going to want to go to a couples therapist to work on the betrayal, the anger, the hurt, the shame, the blame, the guilt, the whatever, and how to come up with a game plan so that this does not happen again. And that's the most important thing. I think when couples are realizing that, oh crap, one or both have got narcissistic parents or abusive parents that are just enmeshing and interfering and causing problems, y'all have to come up with your own game plan. You have to come up with, how do we keep these people out of our relationship? How do we, we're going to have boundaries. So again, Disease to Please, Harriet Breaker, Codependent No More and Beyond Codependent No More, both by Melanie Beattie. There's a book by Pia Melody. There's tons of codependency books out there. Coda can be good, although there are predators in any support group you're going to get into. So just, eyes open. So, but yeah, you're going to want to get it with a good therapist. You're going to want to work on a game plan for how this is not going to happen again. So, for example, with the couple that the mother-in-law was interfering and lying and, telling the spouse, oh, they're taking your money and they're spending your money, when in reality, none of that was happening. The game plan for those two was, first of all, couples counseling and individual counseling for the spouse that had the narcissistic mother, so that person could start working on self-esteem, working on boundaries, working on saying no, because saying no to an adult child of an alcoholic, well, it could be that too. Saying no for an adult child of a narcissist is really difficult, because we've been conditioned to please that abuser. And that natural inclination is to throw everything to the wind and please the abuser. So that's something they are going to have to work on their own. The other thing that they decided to do is that when the spouse went to go visit, the time was limited. It wasn't like for a week. It wasn't for 2 weeks. It was for 3 days or less. And they were to check in with the other spouse daily. So that helped a lot. And, eventually the the narcissistic mother-in-law just realized it was not going to work, which was nice. And so she kind of laid off. And a little bit in the beginning, oh boy, it was, let me smear your wife. And thankfully the spouse was like, nope, I'm not listening to it. Nope, Mom, we're going to change the subject. We're not talking about that. So yeah, you've got to come up with a game plan. You've got to be willing to say no to the abuser, and they were able to maintain a relationship, but it was very much at arm's length. And the other spouse had absolutely nothing to do with the mother-in-law from that point on, because she knew who she was. It's like they showed their true colors. So anyway, I hope that answers the question. So therapy for everybody. That's going to be the best way to do it. Could a parent who has low empathy seem like a narcissist because they have so much damage? Can a jerk be mistaken for a covert narcissist? I hate to break this to you, but what do you think jerks usually are? They're narcissists. Healthy, normal people do not behave in a-hole ways. They don't. They don't enjoy hurting people. They don't enjoy causing drama. They don't enjoy stirring the pot. They don't do things to harm their own children or to harm their children's marriage. So when somebody shows you who they are, there is no excuse in the world for that. They're showing you who they are. Now, granted, alcoholics and drug addicts, when they're in the throes of the addiction, it mimics narcissism, you bet. And they will throw everything to the wind in order to get their drug of choice. And that is very narcissistic, absolutely. When they get clean and sober, however, it's a different story. But if this person is not a drug addict, alcoholic, etc., and they're showing you who they are, that's who they are. Believe them the first time. So it is interesting to me how we as survivors of abuse, especially if we come from a family of origin, desperately try to make excuses for the abuser. We want them to be normal. We want them to be healthy. We want them to change. We want them to fill in the blank. They're not going to, guys. And the sooner you accept that and move on with your life and allow yourself to be happy and whole, the better off you'll be. So yeah, if they're showing you who they are, and it doesn't matter. That's the excuse I hear from narcissists all the time. Oh, but I was abused as a child. Well, guess what, Mother Clucker? So were all of us. Do you see us acting like a jackwagon? No, you don't. It's a choice. It's a choice. Narcissists consistently choose to harm. That's how they get narcissistic supply. They do not have the empathy cog. They do not have the ability to go, ooh, what must that feel like? Because they don't feel the same way we do. So when I hear a narcissist, an abuser, oh, well, I had a bad childhood. Well, so did I, jerk off. You don't see me doing things to people, do you? No, you don't. So it makes me angry because it's like, there is no excuse. There is no excuse. I'm sorry. There is no excuse for that kind of behavior. There isn't. They are narcissists. Get it through our heads. When somebody shows you who they are, believe them the first time. There are plenty of people out here who have been horrifically abused. Like, horrifically. They don't act like a narcissist. In fact, they usually go the opposite direction. They do what they can to try to enlighten, save, help, whatever. So codependent, maybe a little bit. Oftentimes we become therapists. We become, nurses, doctors, whatever, because we want to help people. So yeah, it just, no, I'm sorry. So you were abused, so that's okay that you go out and abuse other people? Nope. I'm calling it. Nope. Absolutely not. So there's your answer. They've shown you who they are. Believe them the first time. Stop making excuses for them, or stop believing their excuses. That whole, oh, I was so damaged as a child. Okay, guess what? There's a lot of us that were damaged as children. You don't see us abusing other people. So there it is. All right. When your sexual abuser adamantly plays the victim and denies ever hurting you, but claims they are hurt for being accused. Oh yeah, the victim game. It's their covert, because they're flipping the script. They're trying to make you the bad guy for outing them for being an abuser. I'm trying to prepare for the complicated grief when they pass away. Yes. So when your sexual abuser passes away, I really strongly urge you to get with a trauma therapist now, before they do. So when I was going through therapy, okay, I started therapy when I was in high school. And the reason I started is because I told my therapist, I said, look, I want to get this handled before he dies, because I don't want to be left with whatever when he dies, because he's going to die at some point, So really, when I was going through therapy, it was with an eye to healing myself, understanding that it was not me, that it was him, that this stuff was his issue, so that when he did die, and he did, that I would be relatively okay. Now, in comparison to some other family members that didn't deal with the whole death aspect of it, no, they were not okay. So it's really important to get with a good trauma therapist and start talking about the abuser dying. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I encourage everyone to do that because you need to start preparing. You do. You need to start preparing. You need to start writing it out. Do a goodbye letter to them as if they were already dead, and start working out those emotions, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever, And there may be good emotions. There may not be good emotions. It may just all be like, screw you. Thank you for messing up my life, and that's okay. So you want to start working on that. That's really important. And I think a lot of therapists kind of skim over that, or they're like, oh, well, they're not dead yet. Okay, no, they're not dead yet, but they will be at some point, and I need to be okay. So there's nothing wrong with doing a goodbye letter. There's nothing wrong with getting with a good trauma therapist that understands the need to feel safe and the need to start processing the grief before they die. So, the anger. And when I say grief, I'm not necessarily meaning boo-hoo. I'm meaning like the anger, the sadness, the betrayal, the what ifs, the whole thing. So, because like when my dad died, he was abusive in every way you could possibly think of. When my dad died, it was a sense of relief. I was relieved because it was like, great, I don't have to deal with his BS anymore. Fabulous. So there's that. And then the other thing that was there was anger. And sadness, and not sadness that he died. It was sadness that he would never get it. Like game over. He never got it. He never approved of any of us. He never approved of my brother. He never approved of my sister. He never approved of me. He never, any of my sisters. He never approved of any of us. And my brother actually said that at the dining room table. He was like, what makes me sad is now I'll never get his approval. And I was just kind of like, baby doll, you never would have gotten his approval whether he lived or not. So it's important to start processing that stuff through. And especially if there's siblings or, other family members or whatever, because sometimes what other family members will do, if they've been abused by them as well, they will suddenly sainthood them. So suddenly my dad was the perfect parent, Saint Bob of the perpetually perfect parents. And I'm like, really? What the? Johnny, la gente está muy loca. What the? Yeah, that was it, basically. I mean, really, it was crazy. It was, I'm sitting there watching this family member do this and I'm like, I know what he did to you. We all know what he did to you. We know what he did to me. We know what he did to you. We know what he did to her. Yeah. And suddenly it was daddy this and daddy that. And I'm like, what the? Well, and that's denial. Denial is deadly and denial does not help. So yeah, you're going to want to confront and deal with the anger, the betrayal, the sadness, the what ifs, the if onlys, the, whatever comes up for you. And some people it's just anger and that's okay. Some people it's just sad. That's okay. Some people it's the what ifs. That's okay. So just allow and do process it now before they die so that when they die, you're ahead of the game. You're kind of like, okay, yep, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling this. I'm feeling this. I'm feeling this. And you know what? It's okay. Because a lot of times when we start that complicated grieving process, because especially if it was a family member, we love them and hate them. That's where the complicated grief comes in. It's like, it's your parent, you love them, but you also hate them for what they did. So it's that dealing with that duality and dealing with the guilt, because society says, oh, you have to feel this way. Well, society can suck it as far as I'm concerned. No, you don't have to feel that way. You feel the way you feel. And if you didn't like the person and you're angry at them and you're glad they're dead, that's okay. That's totally, and it's perfectly okay to speak ill of the dead. In fact, I dare my dad to show back up because I will give him a piece of my mind. And I think he knows that. So anyway, there is that. So, yeah, so you do want to get with a therapist and start working on the complicated grief. I was diagnosed with borderline, but I am nothing like you described. Can I be misdiagnosed again? So borderline is often misdiagnosed as bipolar. Bipolar is often misdiagnosed as borderline. PTSD can be misdiagnosed as borderline. So yeah, you want to, the best thing to do, go look up Mayo Clinic. Look up what the criteria is for borderline. Go look up what it is for CPTSD or for PTSD. So this is the thing. A lot of people who have gone through post-traumatic stress disorder have very, very, very maladaptive ways of dealing with things. And it often gets misdiagnosed as a personality disorder as opposed to, no, they've been traumatized. So yeah, you want to look that up. Look up PTSD, excuse me, Mayo Clinic PTSD, also borderline PTSD, bipolar PTSD, or, it's like, start comparing, start looking at them and comparing. It drives me crazy when clinicians are like, oh no, you can't share a diagnosis and blah, blah, blah. You know what? Knowledge is power. If the criteria does not match you, then that's not you. So go look up those things. And you may not have any of them. You may just have post-traumatic stress disorder. Because if we've been in an abusive relationship or through a trauma of any kind, car accident, train accident, witnessing a murder, witnessing a robbery, anything like that, that will cause post-traumatic stress disorder. Which in turn, if we don't deal with that, we create a bunch of maladaptive ways of dealing with that anxiety, that stress, that, not coping with it. So go look it up. So if those don't match you, then I would strongly suggest finding a different counselor, therapist, psychiatrist, whatever. So yeah, you probably were misdiagnosed again. Totally possible. And that's the thing. Psychology is not a hard science, as people so often love to point out on the television. Yeah. So it is very subjective. So one clinician could see this in the person and another clinician could see this in the person. And it depends on the person, depends on the day, depends how they're presenting. There's a lot of variables going on. So yeah, look it up. See if PTSD suits you better. And if that's the case, then you need to start working on whatever trauma happened to you. So there that is. All right. All right, let's get to these questions. My spouse wants me to not talk about them in my therapy session. What do I do? You talk about them and you let your therapist know of the situation. So here's the deal. It's your therapy session. It's your therapy session. And if anyone says, I don't want you talking about this, I don't want you talking about that, it's not their therapy session. It's your therapy session. You get to talk about whatever your little heart needs to talk about. And I would talk to the therapist about the fact that this person has said, I don't want you talking about me. Because that's a red flag. That's a huge, ginormous Communist Party red flag. Do you see where I'm going with that? It's like red flags everywhere. So a healthy, normal person does not interfere with somebody else's therapy session. Talk about me, don't talk about me, whatever. But somebody who's disordered, well, I need to know what you said. You can't talk about me. I don't want you talking about, well, interesting. If you're not doing anything wrong, then why can't I? There's a question. So yeah, oftentimes disordered people will demand that the spouse not talk about them, not talk about their family. And that's your clue to get out. That is truly your clue to get out. If you're in a toxic in-law situation and the spouse is like, I don't want you talking about me, I don't want you talking about my family, there's your clue. There is your sign. Get out. Save yourself, because this person's never going to change. They're interested in hiding. They're interested in not being truthful. They're interested in interfering in your therapy, which is not cool. So yeah, you don't want to put up with that at all. How do I help my kids not be codependent? So they learn by watching us. So you got to not be codependent. Hate to break it to you. So first and foremost, you got to have good boundaries. You got to have good self-esteem. And then you got to help your kids have good boundaries and have good self-esteem. People with good self-esteem tend not to be codependent. So in other words, codependency is really based on, oh, I got to please this person so they'll like me. Whereas self-esteem is, I like myself. I don't have to please this person. I'm okay. So yeah, that's you're going to have to work on you, and you're going to have to help your kids work on them. So they need to be working their own self-esteem stuff, either mirror work in the morning. Hi, good to see you. Have a great day. I give you permission to like yourself, and then walk out. And then at night, you remind yourself of 3 things you did right. I did this right today, I did this right today, and I did this right today. Go sleep well and then go to bed. So either doing mirror work or finding a age-appropriate self-esteem workbook, that's a great idea. Boundary books, age-appropriate, do that. And then work on your own boundaries and your own self-esteem and check yourself. Seriously, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Seriously, it's like, are you being codependent? Are you modeling for them codependency? No, you don't want to do that. If you find that you're doing that, you got to work on you, and then you help them see the healthier behavior. So it really is, we model for our kids. Absolutely. Okay, let's see. How are we doing on time? I didn't even check. Oh, I'm going to have to go here pretty soon. Okay. Without intervention, do traits of personality disorders go into full-blown, or is it automatically full-blown? Well, generally, everything is on a scale. Everything is on a spectrum. Oh, my ear itches. Everything is on a spectrum. So down here you have traits of, down here you have malignancy. And so generally what happens is that they'll have traits of, and they just never get it worked on. And so it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So with a narcissist, it may start off as kind of full of themselves. They're perfect. They never make a mistake. But then it starts sliding into, I'm going to control other people, and I'm going to manipulate other people, and I need to get my needs met first, and I need to be the best, and I need to be acknowledged as the smartest, and I need to, manipulate, control, etc. And pretty soon it's down over here into the dark triad, which is psychopathy, psychopath thinking, Machiavellianism, control freak, they're controlling everybody around them, and narcissism, it's all about them. So it does kind of slide. Narcissists tend to resist therapy. That doesn't work well with them. Borderlines, if you catch them down at the lower end of the spectrum, absolutely can work on it. If, however, they have slid into the witch and the queen, so the queen is the control freak, kind of like the dark triad. The witch is the sadist, enjoys inflicting harm and pain into others. Once they start liking that, they stick a fork in them, they're done. So unless they're really, really diligent about going to a DBT program, which would be a year and a half of weekly group and individual. One group a week, one individual a week. One group a week, one individual a week. And that's the only thing that helps people when they have slid that far down the spectrum. So, and sometimes not even that. You've got to be diligent about it. You've got to keep working on the maladaptive behaviors. And really, for borderline, what dealing with all the maladaptive behaviors absolutely is what needs to happen. However, what created those maladaptive behaviors? That would be trauma. So work on the trauma. Get with somebody who understands working on the trauma in conjunction on working on the maladaptive behaviors. That's going to be your best shot. So there is that. Okay. What is splitting or revenge thinking? Okay, so splitting and revenge thinking. So 2 different things. Splitting is all, nothing, good, bad, black, white. It's very rigid. It's very rigid thinking. So it's like either or. There's no gray. There's no, well, what about this? It's like, but maybe this. There's none of that. It's like black and white, good, bad, all, nothing, either or. That's splitting, because it's literally, split in half, either good or bad, black or white, all or nothing. So do you see where I'm going? That's splitting. Revenge thinking is called talionic thinking. So talionic thinking is an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. That's talionic thinking. So when somebody with borderline gets harmed or thinks they've been harmed, they tend to be very vengeful. Narcissists tend to be very vengeful. And they go for the talionic. Well, you did this tit for tat. Tit for tat. You did this to me, I'm going to do this to you. Or I'm going to preemptively abandon you before you can abandon me. If they even sense they're about to be abandoned, they'll do a preemptive abandonment. They'll abandon the person they really do love and really do want to be with simply because they don't want to be abandoned and they want to be in control. So it's sad. It really is sad. And so splitting is all, nothing, good, bad, black, white, literally split down the middle. That's why it's called splitting. Revenge thinking is talionic, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, tit for tat. That's the revenge stuff that they tend to do. Narcissists also tend to engage in that. The more malignant they are, the more down the spectrum they are, the closer to the dark triad they are, the more they are about revenge. You know, how dare you not do what I want you to do? How dare you call me out for my lies? How dare you, you know, seriously. And they don't forget. They hold a grudge like nobody's business. And they can be dangerous, absolutely, depending on how much power they have. If they really truly have some power, they can be dangerous. So, but, and though, you don't ever want to be afraid of standing up to a bully, because they are bullies. They are bullies, and they will try to smear and harm and, you know, get back at you and whatever, especially if you've given them any sort of narcissistic injury. The beautiful thing of it is that the wheel of karma does turn around. So yeah, and you oftentimes don't even have to do anything. They kind of tend to shoot themselves in the foot because they're so arrogant and they are so stupid. They tell you exactly what they're going to do, or they admit to what they've done and think nobody's going to notice. So there is that. Are we doing on time? I think I have to go, but let's see. How many more questions do I have? Okay, got a couple more questions. Do narcissistic personality disordered people get better? Can it be prayed away? I really hope you're kidding on that one. No, it cannot be prayed away. No, it can't. And no, they don't get better. Once they have slid into that dark triad, malignant side of it, no, maybe not even for the ones down here. Nature, nurture. So I think that there is a component of nature in this. They are missing the empathy cog. They simply do not have it, okay? They simply do not love or feel the way that a healthy, normal person loves and or feels. So nurture can push that over the edge. So, you know, if they were kind of that way to begin with, and then they had a narcissistic or abusive or, you know, borderline or whatever disordered family, that'll just push them right over the edge and they'll become, you know, completely impossible. They don't get better. They don't. They don't want help. They don't see there's a problem. They're not ever willing to look in the mirror and go, what is my part in this? Ever. They don't. It's never their fault. It's always somebody else's fault. You guns. Always. 24/7. They don't change. They don't get better. You got to stop making excuses for them. They're never going to change. They are never going to change. I'm going to be a broken record. They are never going to change. Trust me on that one. Okay. I want revenge so bad. What do I do with all this anger? That's a common question I get. So here's the deal, guys. That's exactly what they want. The worst and best revenge you can give them is to let them be anonymous. Don't give them a fight. That's what they're looking for. That's narcissistic supply to them. If they can argue with somebody, if they can prove that they're smarter than you, if they can put you down, if they can smear you, if they can, that is just baked Alaska for them. You know what I'm saying? It's the most delicious dessert ever. So yeah, you don't give it to them. Revenge is a fool's game. Revenge is a fool's game. Get rid of it. So it's not going to do you any good. You think it's going to make you feel better. It's not. And what it'll do is it'll keep the cycle going, because you get revenge on them. They're going to get revenge on you. You're going to have to get revenge on them. They're going to get revenge on you. An eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, talionic thinking. So you're going to have to write out the anger. So dear ex, dear family, dear friend, dear boss, dear whatever. And by dear, I mean you total jackwagon. You know, the good, the bad, the ugly, the horrific. At the very, very end, take your power back. Say whatever it is you need to say to them in as many four-lettered words as you need. And then trot it out to the barbecue. Read it out loud once. Burn it. Let it go. Don't allow them to live up here rent-free one more second. Give them the anonymity they so richly deserve. Because narcissists are all about pay attention to me, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. So when you get revenge on them, oh, you're paying attention to them. Best revenge, they don't even exist. Oh, they hate that. They hate that. They cannot stand being anonymous. They can't. They have to be the center of attention all the time. So you really want to do narcissistic injury? Act like they never existed. Live your life. Be happy. That'll piss them off more than anything else. Be successful. Be happy. All right, kids, I have gone way too long. All right, have a great week. And on Sunday, we are going to be talking about the upcoming holidays. And I'm going to be talking about all the different ways that in-laws, ex-laws, exes, narcissists, abusers ruin holidays and special occasions, and what you can do to make yourself bulletproof against these jackwagons. All right. Have a great day. I want to thank my sponsor, BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/Chris Godinez. All right, guys, have a great week, and I will talk to you on Sunday.